Hello and welcome once again to another episode of Lean Living. Today I'd like to discuss bees. Bees, the products they make, their importance to us and why we should keep them round. Okay? So first things first. I've seen on the internet on Facebook often a meme being passed around about Einstein. Einstein who says that if the bees were to ever disappear, that life itself would cease to exist within 4 years. Einstein never said that. However, the statement holds true that if they were to disappear, pretty much everything, bar possibly a third of the products you see on the shelves would actually still be able to be produced, because the pollinators are the essential link in the chain which actually help most of these plants actually come to fruition. Keeping that in mind, there are areas in, for example, China, where they have sprayed so much pesticide that pollinators no longer exist there. The result is they have to hand pollinate all the crops, which has a massive effect on the prices of the actual product, because it costs so much more in terms of labour. Now, this is a free resource, having a bee buzz around and actually jump into the flowers and actually pass the pollen on to the next one and on to the next. When you have to do it by hand, it gets long, takes a long time, it's pretty boring, and it costs a hell of a lot, and it wastes a lot of time. So just one thing to bear in mind when thinking about ways to keep the bees. There is obviously honey. Honey that the bees produce has many beneficial aspects to it, especially the source stuff in terms of your local area. I'm not talking about the pasteurized stuff you buy on the supermarket shelf that has been filtered beyond having any beneficial qualities to it. There are some that still contain a little bit of stuff in it, but essentially what you need to source is something from your local beekeeper, something that's not treated in any kind of manner, shape or form. You don't want to be drinking or eating any products that comes out of a hive where people have been dumping medication and bucket loads of chemicals into it, because then you are ingesting it yourselves. But a natural beekeeper, someone who possibly a hobby beekeeper, or maybe someone else that just produces it just on a slightly larger scale, but minus the use of all these other products. Now, medicinally speaking, honey has many beneficial aspects to it. I myself, being from the UK originally, came over here to Australia and came across a plant called a grevillea. Now, my body had never encountered this plant. It's quite a common plant. It's found pretty much in every single garden in Australia, much to my chagrin. Because my body had never come across this particular type of pollen, even brushing up against this thing would set me off in a severe allergic reaction. My whole body would react. I had a rash everywhere, and I then had to take medication which made me feel quite ill for over a week. In terms of actually getting past it, it would shut down my complete immune system. The only way to actually combat this thing. Now, on Googling different means to actually deal with allergies, I came across a blog or a few articles on microscopic particles of pollen which you actually find in locally sourced honey. Now, because you're ingesting this stuff in doses that are too small to actually harm the body, your body then recognizes the pollen as a non-invasive, non-harmful element. The way that a body reacts to something you're allergic to, with something as mild as hay fever to something on the other scale as bad as anaphylactic shock, is that it doesn't recognize the element and essentially deems it to be harmful to the body. Now, the body's reaction to this is to overcompensate in terms of the the body's reaction. So it can be, like I said, hay fever where you just get itchy eyes, runny nose, to swelling of your throat, and basically an ensuing death with anaphylactic shock. Now, because I was able to get some honey, and actually finally ended up making setting up a hive myself, I've actually managed to cure myself of this rather annoying allergy to this plant. And even though it's not medically sound, I've not done any other experiments with anything like that, and I'm by no means a scientist, I'd suggest that it probably would be worth a go, because when you're taking pharmaceuticals, they're only a very shortcut to coping with a problem, whereas the more natural method is a little more in sync with your body's abilities to defend it. Another product which is often overlooked when it comes to bees is propolis. Now, propolis is an interesting little substance. Essentially, propolis or propolis is from the Greek word before the city, or defender of the city. Now, essentially what this stuff is a resin which the bees extract from local plants in the vicinity to combat diseases and problems they encounter. The bees are a very simple creature. They have existed for millions of years, but when they came into being, they essentially had no immune system, and the way to combat this was to partner up in a symbiosis with the flowering plants. And the way they actually use this propolis is by borrowing the immune systems of the local plants and transferring it to a substance called propolis, which they coat the inside of the hive with. Now, because it's an excretion which is on the inside of the hive, beekeepers sometimes find it slightly annoying because it does gum up everything. I mean, I've had to scrape off many a thing when collecting comb and stuff, but it's found microscopic particles in local honey, so another reason to ingest it, because it's very good for you. What it actually does is, and how it's been used in the past, is in Russia, in the communist Russia, Eastern blocs, when they didn't have the money, the funds to actually invest in pharmaceuticals, it was used and was once and still is called Russian penicillin. It helps the body fight off diseases and stuff. If combined, they found at some point with antibiotics, it makes them 10 times more effective, because it naturally assimilates into the body and actually increases the potency of the actual the pharmaceutical. So once again, another thing to actually be aware of, propolis. So write that on your list of beneficial things that the bees actually bring us. I think that's roughly it. I have rambled on a little bit on this one, and there's a lot of things that I've missed out, but as usual, it's not the entire thing that I'm actually covering here. I'm just piquing your interest in certain parts of the subject at hand. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, comments below, and have a good day.